2, 1.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Joe Bob.
That is actually her name, Joe Bob.
Live from the dingy bunker that is completely and totally, utterly cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Joe Bob. Thanks so much for tuning in. On today, it is Tuesday, January 30th. How is January already over? My name is Joe Bob. I have some thoughts about some things. A lot of stuff to get into. Congresswoman from Somalia apparently is solely focused on representing Somalia instead of the people in the United States of America and looking out for the U.S.'s best interest, but we'll get to that first and foremost. Also, a dude is swimming with teenage girls in Canada, and the person that got arrested at that was the reporter that was covering the insanity there. We'll definitely get to that. How are you still able to get to Nancy Pelosi's house? There were some protesters in Nancy Pelosi's driveway again, which I can't imagine. How is that still happening? But anyways, oh, and there's also this hilarious TikTok in which I actually come forward and will tell you my new gender racial pronouns as a new thing that I am. And if you don't believe it, you're a bigot. But first, to get to this, this is making a lot of waves around the internet. This is Ilhan Omar. She is part of the squad. She is a crazy person by all standards, and was caught on camera. By caught, I mean openly doing so at a speech in her district in which she says, "I am here to represent Somali interests," which, in case you didn't know, that's not what Congress is for. Usually you represent the interests of the American people, not the interests of a country that you fled as a refugee to come here. But that's kind of beside the point. I think we're going to watch what she had to say. And then I do want to explain what actually is going on in Somalia, because it actually is interesting. And from a U.S. interest standpoint, we have an interest, we have an actual interest in doing the exact opposite thing that Ilhan Omar wants and is preaching about, being a Somali Congresswoman rather than a U.S. Congresswoman. Watch this. I'm going to read it. The volume is turned down on it because it's entirely in, I don't even know what language this is. Whatever they speak in Somalia, she is speaking to this crowd in Minneapolis, or in the Minnesota area. Minnesota? Michigan. No, that's Rashida Tlaib is from Michigan. Speaking to her Somali first constituents. This is Ilhan Omar. I'll read the subtitles. Watch this. We as Somalians, we love each other. Okay? There are areas of friction that have led us to kill each other, but in reality, we are an organized society. I beg to differ. Brothers and sisters, people of the same blood, a little racist, people who know they are Somali first, okay? Muslims second, who protect another to come each other's old and aid. Oh no, this is going too fast now. My answer, but basically she said Somali first, Muslim second. Then she says the U.S. is going to do what we tell them to do. They will do nothing else. We as Somalis must have the confidence in ourselves. We live in the U.S., we pay taxes here too, we are the real country. The U.S. is the country where your daughters, myself, yada yada. Oh my gosh, they're going so fast. She's talking insanely fast. Bottom line is, she's basically saying, we are going to look out for the interests of Somalis first here in America. Okay, wait. I feel like I can stop playing this now, right? Have we gotten enough of this? Sleep in comfort. I'll just read some of the quotes because, yeah, that was going way faster than I thought it was. I didn't practice that or rehearse that at all at the beginning. But some of the bigger quotes that she had said there. Let's see. The U.S. government will do what we want, nothing else. They must follow our orders. That's how we safeguard the interests of Somalia, which again is not the goal and objective of somebody who sits in the U.S. House of Representatives in Congress. The goal is to guard the interests of the American people, but again, we don't need to reiterate that. And goes on to say a bunch of other stuff, basically pledging allegiance to Somalia, which is, again, a country so war-torn that she left there to come here and now wants to make here there, which is, again, I don't even want to get into the idiocy of that. But I do want to try this new thing. I don't know what we'll call this segment, Geography with Joe Bob. Because I do want to explain what's going on here and where the U.S. interests probably actually lie, which is not in the best interest of Somalia. Because again, we are looking out for us and ourselves and the U.S., and we are not looking out solely for the interests of a foreign country where people had to leave as refugees to seek asylum here because it sucked so much. I want to take you on a map here. This is, again, well, I don't know, we'll call this segment Geography with Joe Bob. Okay, so if you look around here, this is Somalia. This L-shaped, 7-shaped area. I don't know if you can see the mouse here on the cursor, but this is the Somali country. If you ever wonder where Somali pirates, or why Somali pirates are like a thing that you know about, well, it's because this Gulf here that leads into the Red Sea is a big shipping lane. This is also where you have what's it called? The Suez Canal. So big ships carrying lots of stuff coming from Europe and going through the Suez Canal into the Red Sea and then out into the Indian Ocean and to wherever they want to go in the world. That is why Somalia is famous for the Somali pirates, which, good news, have been thwarted by efforts to dissuade Somali pirates, including armed people, effectively military, on ships coming out of the Red Sea and going to the rest of the world. But anyways, that's why Somalia, if you've heard of Somali pirates, that's because their geography is where it is. Now, one thing that I feel like goes not understated, but isn't talked about enough, is that pretty much all wars, in a lot of ways, are over geography. What she's talking about here is we will defend Somali interests in the U.S. government, there is now tension between, well, there's always been tension, but there is tension between Ethiopia, right here, and Somalia, which, again, borders Ethiopia and the coast. If you don't know this about Ethiopia, Ethiopia is the 11th most populous most populous nation state, most populous country in the world. They have 120 million people, bringing them in at 11th in terms of population. Also, if you've noticed from a map, this is the border of Ethiopia. Ethiopia does not have any oceans with easy access. In other words, they are landlocked entirely by countries that border them and then the coast. Well, what does that mean? How does that have any value? What problems could that create? Well, Ethiopia being the biggest country population-wise that is entirely landlocked restricts their trade to the outside world. So for the last 30 or so years, there has been talks about Ethiopia making sure that they have access to the ocean. Currently, a lot of their imports and exports, so much as they have them, come through ports in Djibouti, which is this tiny small place that Ethiopia is friendly with, that ships can come through here and they can import on railroads all the way to Addis Ababa, which is their capital, and they can also export through Addis Ababa through trains and get through Djibouti. Now, here's the problem. Djibouti, rightfully so, obviously looking out for their own best interest, charges Ethiopia a bunch of money in order to import and export through their ports. So what Ethiopia wants ultimately is some land here that will get them to the ocean. To the north is Eritrea, which in like 1990s, 1992, somewhere in the 90s, used to all be one more broadly unified Ethiopia, but Eritrea has broken off from Ethiopia. Now, why can't they go take some Eritrean land? Well, the Eritreans are described as the North Korea of Africa. If you don't know this about Eritrea, they are a military dictatorship run by the same guy who was put in charge, or who was in charge, established to be in charge when Ethiopia and Eritrea split. Now, obviously, in the last 30 years, Ethiopia has had a massive growth. We can talk about the Grand Renaissance Dam that is also part of the conflict with them and Egypt. just briefly. They're building a big old dam that starts at the head of the Nile River, which, if you look at this map here, if you don't know this, all of the population of Egypt is along the Nile River, because the Nile River is extremely important. And Ethiopia built a dam at the Blue Nile, I believe, which is one of the biggest tributaries, because they want to generate power for their people. So bottom line is, Ethiopia is a massively growing and establishing themselves nation state, and they, in their huge population and their want and ability to be a player on the world stage, wants an ocean port. So if Eritrea is out, Djibouti they're still friendly with, well, Somalia does have a lot of population in this area, Mogadishu being the capital there. Somalia is a great place for Ethiopia to maybe carve out a small portion of this area, maybe right here, that says, all right, this is now Ethiopia, and we now have access to the ocean. Is it a perfect deep sea port? No, it's not. That exists probably only in Djibouti. But overall, just having access to the ocean would be hugely beneficial for Ethiopia. So, all of that is to say, when Ilhan Omar is saying that we are looking out for Somali interests, especially against Ethiopia, she wants to get the U.S. involved in an armed conflict that may exist between Ethiopia and Somalia, because Ethiopia, being the 11th largest country in the world, needs ocean access. And if they decide to attack or even occupy small portion of Somalia, Ilhan Omar, a congressional representative in the United States of America, wants to solely look out for the Somali government here and say, no, the U.S. has to get involved here, which I think is something that a lot of people don't want to have happen. At the end of the day, neither of these countries, no country in this region really, I guess aside, well, not even Yemen. Yemen is, we've heard a lot about Yemen and Iran, who's the Yemenis fighters over here being backed by Iran and attacking U.S. troops in Jordan up here, which again just happened over the weekend, which is a terrible situation. But this region of the world, this part of Northeast Africa, doesn't have the ability to expand into a global war, in which case any conflict here is probably going to just be a regional conflict, despite the fact that Ilhan Omar, looking out for the best interest of Somalia and not the U.S., says that we need to get involved militarily if Ethiopia, who wants sea access, decides to get involved in Somalia. Decides to take land from Somalia. Ilhan Omar wants the United States to get involved. So at the end of the day, and the bottom line here, and I realize this was a geography lesson that you didn't want probably, and you didn't know you needed, or you didn't know that you didn't want. At the end of the day, it doesn't seem like the U.S. would have any interest in caring about this at all. If anything, considering the fact that Ethiopia can be a burgeoning economic hub for international trade and global commerce, it would seem that the United States, if they had any interest, which I don't think they should have any interest, but if they had any interest whatsoever in this region, would be, let's go ahead and get Ethiopia some sea access so they can trade with American partners around the world. So again, I realize that it wasn't a geography lesson that you probably wanted or even knew that you maybe needed, but that's that segment. Geography with Joe Bob, we'll call that that. But anyways, that is why Ilhan Omar is making a bunch of noise about Somalia and looking out for the best interests of the Somali people, which is dumb and stupid and wrong. A bunch of people on the conservative side of the aisle said they should call, given that speech, given what Ilhan Omar said, that her allegiance is to Somalia and then Islam, and didn't even mention the U.S., even though she represents people in the U.S. Congress. A bunch of people on the right side were calling for her resignation, probably rightfully so. So there is that. Let's see. Let's go here, because I do want to leave enough time. Nah, screw it. We're going to go this. Check this out. If you haven't heard about this story, you probably will. Why is this not? Oh, there we go. If you haven't heard about this story, you probably will. A 50-year-old dude in Canada who is cosplaying as a woman is getting to swim with teenage girls and change in the locker room. This is one of those things where a bunch of lefty people will say, oh, that's not happening. Okay, there's video evidence of it happening. Our friends at Rebel News decided to send a reporter over there to document the thing that they say isn't happening actually happening. Now, just some context. This guy's name originally is, let me pull it up, Nicholas Cepeda, who, interestingly enough, has a PhD in, like, psychology or something from the University of Urbana-Champaign and a psychology bachelor's degree. He's also the head of Cognitive Flexibility Lab at York University and develops and validates tools for teachers that are based in cognitive psychology principles. And again, a person who has clearly a mental disorder, which still is in the DSM, which constitutes what is a mental disorder and what is not. Gender dysphoria still is considered a mental disorder in the United States of America. So this person who clearly has a mental disorder and is also for some reason in charge of a cognitive psychology lab at York University decided, hey, I want to compete as a swimmer, so I'm going to participate in the 16 and up age brackets and swim with teenagers. Now, all of the obvious should be stated that, yes, that is crazy, yes, that is weird. Also, I feel like there needs to be a stronger delineation between the age brackets. Why is 16 and up its own group? I'm fine, I guess, with I'm, first of all about age brackets. I guess I'm more fine with 25 and up, or 30 and up, or 50 and up, and then having the different gradations of age go on down. But the fact that the top age bracket starts at 16 is crazy, right? Like, I can't be the only person that says that. And that's not on this guy's, that's not his fault. It's the fault of the people who set up this league or whatever it is. If you want to swim against people in an age bracket, make the age brackets more normal. Why are 16-year-olds swimming with 30-year-olds even? Regardless if it's a 15 or 50-year-old dude, yes, that is crazy, but that's beside the point. Why isn't there like a 16 to 18-year-old division, or an 18-year-old to 20-year-old division, and then a 20 to 25 and a 25 to 30 and a 30 to up, whatever you want to do, but this specifically, the 16-year-old and up bracket is weird. Anyways, because the 16 and up year old bracket exists, Nicholas Cepeda participated in several events in the East Bayfield Community Center. Now, one of the interesting parts about this is this guy's crisscrossing Canada to find swimming events that he's allowed to participate in as a 50-year-old dude dressing up as a woman saying he's a transgender woman. Which includes the 1,500-meter freestyle for athletes 16 and older, where he placed second. Shouldn't you win that? Anyways. But the 50-year-old man, again, is crisscrossing Canada and is able to compete, depending on the meet and depending on the location, against teenage girls as young as 13. According to reports, this guy is also changing in girls' locker rooms at events and changes clothes alongside girls. Parents have reportedly been uncomfortable and have constructed makeshift towel tents to help their daughters change into swimsuits. I guess before we get into kind of the legality of this and what Canadian law says, and again, our friends at Rebel News had a great depiction of what that is, I think as a dad of a daughter, it would be very, very, very difficult to stop at pulling my daughter from this event. I mean, that goes without saying. The first and foremost, you yank the kid. Sorry, girl. Some 50-year-old dude wants to swim in your meet. We're going to not participate in that. And that's the obvious first step. And what I'm saying is, it would be very, very difficult to stop there in my, we'll call it outrage, but I'll stop there before I get myself in trouble. But it would be a lot. Anyways, our friends at Rebel News had a great clip here that I would like to play for you. When being asked to leave the facility. Shoot, where is this thing? Nope. Oh, sorry. All right, here it is. Check this out. Again, Rebel News reporting. Okay, first of all, so just to give you some context, this guy is in there saying, hey, I'm just documenting what's going on here. Does anybody want to let me know why this is normal? Does anyone want to talk about it? And he's confronted. So the 50-year-old dude who's changing in front of 13-year-old girls isn't asked to leave. No, instead, he's asked to leave. And the delicious irony of what this lady says is unbelievable. Watch this.
Do you know there's a 50-year-old man? Oh, no, but you interrupted me, ma'am, so I think if you work here...
I'm not allowed to film here. I do not consent to being on this video.
We don't need your consent. Do you know that there's a 50-year-old man going into the girls' showers?
You are not allowed to film here.
Are you a biological female?
Here. You are not allowed to film here.
Okay, there's
Can
a...
you please
Is
leave the building?
it allowable for me to shower with 13-year-old girls?
Building. You need to leave the building.
Right, we'll be on
You're
our...
not allowed to film right here. You're filming minors in bathing suits.
Oh, is that right? Well, we're not. And secondly, there is a man showering with minors.
You're not allowed to be here. You are trespassing now, and you are not allowed to film here.
Okay, so what is your name?
Right here. I'm not giving you my name.
Okay, are you a security guard?
You are not allowed to be here.
Okay, do you have a security license?
You are not allowed to be here.
Okay, well, you could be anybody, so I don't know who you are. Why are you upset about us filming, but you're not upset about a 50-year-old man?
Rules. You're breaking the rules.
All right, what about the law that is being broken of a 50-year-old man being showering with 13-year-olds?
Breaking the rules.
But you have no problem with somebody that might be a sexual predator?
You are breaking the rules. Now, please, can you take that out of my face? I do not consent to be interviewed or on film.
Okay.
So please exit the building.
Well, you're the star interview so far, so thank you for that. Are you going to do anything about a 50-year-old man showering with 13-year-old girls? That's a...
I feel like just the caveat here is I mostly blame the Canadian government. Yes, is she out of line? Absolutely. But the fact that she is put in this position to have to try and get this guy out, who is doing the work of the people, trying to expose the utter and complete BS of a 50-year-old dude changing in front of 13-year-old girls, the fact that she's put in that position is not cool and the fault of the Canadian government. That being said, the irony of saying you're filming young girls in bathing suits. First of all, no, he's not. Second, so we agree that it would be weird if an older man was there to witness young girls in bathing suits, let alone in the locker room and in the showers. I think we can agree on that, right, lady? I also I wish he would have tugged on this thread a little bit more. She's like, you need to leave. And he's like, well, who are you? Do you work here? She's like, I'm not telling you my name or my position or my authority. I wish he would have been like, well, then you leave. If you're not going to tell me that you have any authority here, I'm the one. I work here. I have the authority. You need to leave. I wish he would have done that. I think that would have been funny. So she gets into this whole thing about, well, you're breaking the rules. You're breaking the rules. And then he points out, well, you're breaking the law having this dude participate in, actually not participate in, but change in women's locker rooms where young girls are changing. And so I kind of thought, well, I don't know anything about Canadian law. What law is this guy breaking? And I want to hear about that. Thankfully, in this video, again, our friends at Rebel News, I'll post the link somewhere. You can watch the entire thing. It's like 13 minutes, but it's fantastic. He goes through what the laws are. And, you know, again, not being an expert in Canadian law, it does seem pretty compelling that, yeah, this guy is breaking the law, which outside of the moral failings of letting this dude do what he's doing, legally speaking, even woke freaking Canada, apparently it seemed to be illegal. Watch this on the legality of this dude doing what he's doing. Check it out.
Because we want to get some clarity about a law that we think is being broken, namely the Criminal Code of Canada, section 173.1, which states, quote, everyone who willfully does an indecent act in a public place in the presence of one or more persons, or in any place with intent to insult or offend any person, is guilty of an indictable offense and is liable to imprisonment for a term of not more than 2 years, end quote. Furthermore, section 173.2 states, quote, an indecent exposure charge under section 173.2 of the code means that the person charged is accused of exposing their genital organs to a person under the age of 16. Because this offense involves a minor, it is more serious than an indecent act charge, end quote. So answer me this, folks. Why isn't Nicholas Cepeda being criminally charged?
Good question. After the laying out of the law there in Canada, it would appear that, yeah, that would be an illegal act that this person is committing. Again, go watch the rest of the video, Rebel News. And this was not super recent. This was a couple months ago. No, a couple weeks ago that they put this out. But check out Rebel News. They're fantastic. They are on the ground doing a bunch of this stuff. And it is really, really, really interesting to see what's going on. And our friends at the North have just lost their freaking minds, it would appear. Let's see. Let's get to this before we exit. I am this blows my mind in